Good day, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, The Importance of Analytics in Storage Management. Before we get started and go through some introductions and some housekeeping items, we want to start right off with a polling question. So as you folks are coming into the session, if you would please respond to this polling question. What are your biggest challenges with storage resource management? And there's several choices here. Select the one that applies the best to your situation. The responses are multiple tools / console to manage storage. Another choice is lack of visibility across storage domains. Another option is determining cause of outages or performance problems. Another choice is reclaiming unused storage. And lastly, consolidated storage reporting. As we're getting started here, folks, if you would be so kind as to respond to this polling question with the choice that most applies to your biggest challenge with storage resource management. And then once we get those results, and we'll get going. Okay, so the responses have come in. So leading the response with a 33% of the respondents, determining cause of outages or performance problems was listed as the biggest challenge with storage resource management. Again, that was determining cause of outages or performance problems. Tied at 24%, we have two choices, tied for second place. That is multiple tools / consoles to manage storage, and lack of visibility across storage domains. Those two are 24% of the respondents. And then another tie for third place. The other two questions or responses here, at 10% of the respondents, reclaiming unused storage and consolidated storage reporting. So again, the leader of the poll, determining cause of, oops, the poll went away. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for responding to the poll questions. I appreciate that. Next slide, please. Okay, and good morning or good day again. This webinar is brought to you by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. We're happy to be with you today. My name is Mark Herbert. I am a member of the Vivint Board of Directors. I currently serve as Vice President of the Vivint Board. I am also one of the leaders of our HPE Software Education Special Interest Group. And locally in my area, I am the chapter leader for our Arizona chapter. Next slide. And we're delighted to have with us today from HPE, Kara McMillan. She is the product manager for storage management, and Vijay Ram S., the functional architect, HPE Software Storage Management from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. So we're looking forward to learning a lot from these folks today. For those of you that are familiar with our Vivint webinars, or if you're not, I will let you know that this live session is being recorded. The recordings are available to all Vivint members and will be published shortly after the presentation today. Within the next few days, you'll be able to go and watch the recording. We also encourage you, when we reach our Q&A session of the presentation, to type questions into the questions pane on the menu on your right-hand side of your screen. Next slide. You'll notice the GoToWebinar control panel. And within the control panel, you'll see a section for questions. We, again, highly encourage you, as we are going through today's material, please type in any questions you have. And towards the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session and respond to as many of those as we possibly can. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kara McMillan from HPE to go through the agenda and to get us started. Kara?
Great. Thanks so much, Mark. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. We welcome you to the webinar. I'm Kara McMillan, Product Manager for HPE Software Storage Management. Joining me today will be Vijay Esram, the Functional Architect for our products. I'll start the webinar off by reviewing the storage management need for analytics, and then review a little bit about Storage Operations Manager. And then Vijay will follow up with a demo of a few storage analytics use cases that we can address in HPE Storage Operations Manager. And again, we'll encourage you to ask your questions in the question manager so that we can take your questions at the end and address them. So again, I'll start off and look at the storage management and analytics just overall. If we just take a moment to look at a typical day at work or at home, we're just inundated with a lot of information. We have a lot of ideas and emails and lots of things going on, tweets, messaging, and the availability of all of this data across a wide variety of applications generates an overwhelming amount of information that we have to store. So the growth in all of this data and multimedia impacts storage management of all storage devices. And it can take up a lot of, it takes up a major portion of what we store, with an increasing proportion committed to fixed storage for compliance reasons. We also know that as all of this swells and we have regulations that require more messages and documents to be archived. At the same time, we have the effect of cloud and virtualization on our environments, offering us performance and management efficiencies, but they also change the complexity of how we manage our data. So I wanted to show you the results of some of the results of a recent study by Dimensional Research. We found when they did their polling that more than half of IT professionals responded that they spend 15% or more of their IT budget on storage. And as you can see, even some of them are even spending higher than 30 to 50% on their storage. This is a lot of money to be spent from the IT budget, and this massive amount of storage capacity drives a major requirement for storage and IT admins to understand the usage and performance of their storage capacity, understand how that capacity is growing, which servers storage is allocated, where it can be reclaimed. And for a medium-sized business, let alone an enterprise, this can be an extremely difficult and time-consuming task. When we asked what analytical capabilities are most important for an SRM solution, fully 70% of respondents answered that storage capacity reclamation was key. And then another 64% also responded that they wanted their SRM solution to be able to predict when they would be running out of storage capacity. Of those respondents, we also asked if they had completed a storage reclamation project in their environments, and of those who had, 2/3 responded that the major benefit of the reclamation project was reduced or delayed need to purchase additional storage. So the overwhelming results in this poll showed that customers were really interested in capacity reclamation, understanding when they would be running out of storage, and being able to delay the need for or reduce the need for additional storage purchase. So let's take a few minutes to understand what some of those challenges are in storage resource management. I'll start with this whiteboard example. The first area is data growth, and what we typically see at our customers is a data growth of about 40 to 60%. And at that rate, we see the data is doubling about every 18 months. Most of this growth comes from unstructured data, and the storage admin is also responsible for growing the OpEx spend of managing this data, but that spend is pretty flat, and if not exactly flat. And in some cases, there's pressure for the storage manager to reduce that budget. So as you can see, there's that widening gap between the rate of the data growth and then the expenditure of managing that data. So how do you bridge that gap? Well, the next piece then we have to worry about is complexity. It comes about from different solutions and technologies being implemented to address specific business challenges. So in order to deliver immediate access to application data, quickly respond to your business needs, and make sure that data is always available, the IT admin must have specialized knowledge not only in storage, but also in networking, computing, and vendor-specific interfaces. And then as data grows, the number of data centers and geographies multiplies, and this complexity becomes more pronounced unless companies pay attention to proactive capacity optimization, staff training, knowledge, resource utilization and consumption, and as well as the inevitable fact that data is growing so quickly. As we mentioned before, every 18 months the data is doubling. So specifically from a storage management perspective, let's just take a quick look at where this complexity comes from. So in end-to-end storage management, enterprise storage is provided externally managed storage. But remember why we went from local SCSI storage to external storage. Because in moving to external storage, we created pooled resources that are more efficient and flexible and easier to manage. And storage can be allocated to systems from a central pool of storage without having to physically move storage. And the sharing of the storage would mean that fewer physical disks are required in comparison to the local SCSI storage, and that storage can now be centrally managed. And shared storage was, of course, a prerequisite for clustering and virtualization technologies that rely on shared storage. And then we take the physical disks and we slice them and dice them through RAID or whatever storage virtualization technology we're using, and eventually present host systems, Luns via SAN, zoning, and SAN fabric. And then we consider that each host will be running applications to meet some sort of business requirement. And then different components of an infrastructure are then typically managed by siloed teams. And in many cases, the storage team and the SAN are managed by one team, the hosts are managed by the server team, applications may be managed by multiple teams, DB admins, etc. And then among all of those teams, the end-to-end management of storage resources becomes even more complex as multiple or heterogeneous vendor technologies are used. So each of these levels of abstraction, whether at host and virtualization of the host, storage, thin provisioning on the storage, each of these layers creates scope for storage to be misconfigured or lost. So Storage Operations Manager is a product that we that can help create a little bit of insight into that complexity. Storage Operations Manager is a new storage resource management product from HPE. It provides multi-vendor storage management, both physical and virtual environments. It has high scalability with storage analytics, powerful reporting and data warehouse, and looks at optimization across the entire infrastructure. It's a brand new product that we built on the framework of Network Node Manager, which is HP's long time, 25 years long product, and so it's time-tested and a reliable framework. And it enables us to have massive scalability to discover and report on rapidly growing storage infrastructures. Focus of SOM is on two of the main use cases for storage resource management: capacity and performance optimization. So SOM offers resource optimization by identifying sources of unused storage capacity to allow the administrator to reclaim storage for other uses, while at the same time delaying the need for additional spending on storage hardware. SOM can also help pinpoint areas of degraded performance, which, when we address these, can help optimize the performance of the SAN. As I mentioned, we built SOM on the NMI framework, and thanks to that framework, we have the ability to scale out massively for an ever-expanding storage infrastructure. So it can accommodate flat SAN and environments that use NAT for supporting cloud. Also, the reporting within SOM is very highly scalable. It uses HPE Operations Bridge Reporter, which has a powerful Vertica data warehouse included. That Vertica data warehouse allows for massive amounts of data from multiple installations to be quickly rolled up and resolved at a global level. But it's also this Vertica data warehouse which enables SOM to collect a massive amount of data and historical data and collect it for a long time, but quickly correlate and calculate to provide storage analytics to help analyze and predict areas of concern in the storage environment. This is especially useful in the area of virtualization where customers have thin provision storage in virtual server environments. We can offer analytics and thin provisioning in a virtual environment. We can show, for instance, the base to threshold DTP for a physical array when an array is going to reach 80, 90, or 100% capacity, if that array is going to hit it in 30, 60, or 90 days. And then just a few of the dashboards that are available. Some of our new ones are Virtual Server Analytics dashboard. So at the capacity management level, we can show we can monitor storage availability on virtual servers. We can manage snapshots and then show the powered off virtual machines in the environment. At thin provisioning, we can show analytics of thin provisioning, tracking physical storage available for expansion. And at the host level, we can monitor storage availability at virtual servers, over allocated data stores, and powered off VMs. We also offer now a Path Analytics dashboard, which shows storage volumes with single points of failure, hosts with missing run paths, and hosts with shared storage volumes. And at the host level on the Path Analytics dashboard, we can show storage paths that lack redundancy, zoning misconfigurations, and volumes shared with other hosts. So these are just a few of the snapshots. So I'd like to turn it over now to VJ, who can do a demo and show you a little bit more live demo on these analytics. So let me go ahead and turn it over to VJ.
Hello everyone, hope you can see my screen now. Kara, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, VJ.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, before I jump in and show you a bunch of use cases about how we use analytics and provide useful information to the customers, let me walk you through the UI layout so that you'll be able to follow what I'm doing in the right. So this is the landing page of the product, and in terms of the UI layout, over to the left, what we have is called as workspaces. Incident browsing is a workspace, analytics dashboards is another, and each workspace will have multiple views in it. I can have like as many views as I want here, so we can put in a lot of views. And there are three basic type of views. So the number one that you're seeing on your screen right now is called as a dashboard view. So a dashboard view will have multiple graphical widgets in it. It's all HTML and JavaScript. There is no Java or Flash-based plugins used here. It's all HTML based. It's very interactive. For example, if I select a pie, it drills down and it shows me a table view of the pie that I selected. For example, in here, I've selected the EVA storage arrays that I have in the managed environment. This brings us to the second view, which is a table view. A table view shows an inventory sort of list, and these are the devices, and I can double click a device and it shows the details about it. Its components like controllers or the Luns that are there, or the disk drives that my EVA has, and the ports and so on and so forth. Right. So a dashboard view, a table view that can drill down to a form view, and the final type of view is a topology view. We can come back to it later point in time, but these are the three UI constructs that we have, on which the entire product is built on, right? We wanted this to be very interactive for the users and very easy to use. So there are a lot of cool features that allows us to, let's say, export the table that we have over to an CSV file that you can open in Excel, and if you want to email it to somebody, you can do that instantly from within the product. Right? So the product is built for interactivity in that sense. Having said that, let's look at what kind of new data that we have added with SOM, and how did the analytics, what is the need for analytics in storage resource management, right? So, I have the environment capacity dashboard. It shows a summary of the managed environment. I can see the logical allocated and unallocated storage from my arrays. In terms of NAS and hosts, I can see the file system used in free space, and in terms of switch ports, I can get an overview of how many ports are used in free, right? And again, the charts are interactive. If I select that, I can see a table view of, the view is sorted based on the metric that I selected, right? And also, we can have like more levels of dashboards. For example, I'm clicking on the storage system by the environment capacity dashboard, and you can see here that we are presenting useful information like raw used and raw available capacity. What are the top 10 storage systems that we have? Where do we have the most amount of capacity, or where we have consumed the most amount of capacity, right? And also, we have another widget here which tells us about orphan storage at the storage system level or the array layer. We get this information by looking at the host security group configuration. Different vendors call it different names, but then these are the Luns, and this is the presentation of the Lun, right? So if a Lun is created and not presented to a server, then that particular Lun gets flagged within the system, and it shows up as an aggregate number over here for that storage array, right? We can do that by looking at a simple configuration information. Next up, the same kind of detail on the host side. Any server management tool can tell us about used and free space from file systems, C colons, D colons, or the different mount points that we have in Linux. But having the storage perspective within SOM, we can also tell what are the Luns that are presented from the storage arrays to different servers, and within that list, how much storage is orphaned, in the sense that the server has not consumed that storage. There is no file system or partition created on that particular Lun that's presented to the server. So we can get that information and present it within SOM. So the new UI views really allowed us to add all these views, and these are simple views, right? When we started presenting these views and the new product to our customers, to our early product review program, and the initial feedback that we got from different customers was that this is all great, but we have a specific problem in our environment, which is our server management team and the storage management team are siloed. they don't talk to each other, in the sense that the server management team doesn't really share the usernames or passwords with my of the different servers with my storage management team. So I cannot go and discover these servers to really get hold of a list of orphan LUNs, who is using these LUNs, or who's not using these LUNs. So I cannot get that information, and I need your help in sort of figuring that information out without having to really using or entering usernames and passwords within SOM, right? That's where we really started looking at analytics as the solution to solving a lot of problems that are there, not just from the storage management perspective, but also due to how these different IT groups talk to each other and how that is driven within those teams, right? So the first sort of analytics that we started doing was, it's called a storage systems news volume analytics, and it's pretty simple. Across all the devices that we collect performance, be it HP's 3-par or EMC Symmetrics or Clarion, or the XP arrays or Hitachi arrays, what we do is we collect these performance metrics, and from those metrics we can figure out if a LUN is recording any IO or not, right? So the dashboard is driven by that number that we collect, the performance numbers that we collect, and this is a rolling. This is calculated from a metric which considers a rolling period of up to 30 days. So if the LUN has not recorded any IO in the last 30 days, it would show up here, and we can give this information across all the devices that's managed within SOM. Right, so at a high level, you see the aggregate capacity, which is not recording any IO. And if you select a particular storage system, it would then drill down and it will show a list of LUNs. So these are the LUNs that I have, and the pools from which the LUNs are created, and the size of the LUN. Right, so we can get that list. We can use the breadcrumbs to go back and forth between these different tabs that I'm opening within the product. I can pull up the list from a different array, and then I can see that, for example, looks like there's a 5 terabyte LUN in my array here, which is flagged as orphan capacity, right? Yeah, so we can, clicking on the LUN, we can see the performance metric of that LUN, and we can use this to sort of get a confirmation as to why that LUN was flagged as orphan, right? You can see here that it's not recording any IO. Okay. And it came from a specific customer, and we work with them and sort of roll it out in the product, and I was a discoverer, and we got a very good feedback for this particular feature, because another customer came to me and said that I have the very same problem. Whenever server administrators ask for storage, they're very polite and get the storage, but when they decommission the servers, they don't notify me and then tell me that so-and-so server has been decommissioned, so that I can go ahead and free up my storage that's allocated to that server, right? So that doesn't happen, and this sort of gives me a definite proof point that certain LUN is not being used anymore, and I can go back to the server administrator and then ask them, hey, do you really need this, or can we free up that storage, right? So we started rolling out analytics from the real problems our customers faced, and this is how we are applying sort of number crunching to solve some of the problems in storage management. And the second problem, or the next problem where we had to apply analytics was about capacity forecasting, because the very act of reclaiming storage, reclaiming orphan storage really pushes up the utilization levels of storage systems, because we kind of remove things that are not used anymore. So we can see that the allocations are improving, because we are allocating all that storage to more and more servers, right? And we provide that forecast within the product in terms of days to threshold analytics, we track the raw usage percentages and also the thin provisioning numbers, the actual allocated and actual use percentages, and so that the administrators can keep track of when these arrays are going to hit different threshold at for different metrics, right? For example, if you pick raw used, you can see here 80, 90, and 100% of the thresholds that gets tracked, and the bar indicates how many storage devices are going to hit a particular threshold within a period of 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, right? Selecting a graph would drill down, and it actually shows the actual number of days to a particular threshold value, right? So we can get that list within the product. Right. Like I said, we really wanted to make sure that when the utilization levels go up, we want to ensure that we don't over-allocate and end up in an outage situation in terms of allocating storage. Right? And why did we pick these three numbers? Because these three numbers made the most amount of sense when it comes to storage allocation and tracking storage usage, right? For example, if we are at 100% of raw use, that means that we cannot create any more storage pools, and there's a small difference between the actual allocated and actual used. Some arrays do differentiate and some do not. Let me explain what it means. For example, let's say again, if I hit 100% of actual allocated, then I have written out all the blocks or I have allocated all the blocks to the to the different servers. Some arrays do allocate in chunks, but the host may not have fully written out all the blocks, right? But when we are at 100% of actual allocated, that means that I cannot create any more storage volumes in the different pools that I have, right? Because all the blocks are allocated. And actual used, so this is nothing but the actual writes itself. So when we are at 100% of actual used, then that means that we have fully written out all the blocks, and our subsequent writes are going to start failing, right? So that's why we track these three metrics and across different time windows and different threshold levels, so that we proactively tell the administrators, okay, these are the hot storage systems that you need to watch out for, and make sure that you balance out the storage so that you don't end up in an outage situation, right? And also, these numbers are available at the storage pool level, because that's where the allocations are actually happening to the servers, right? So there is no sort of raw capacity here, because we are trying to create storage pools. We are already within the storage pool. We track the thin provisioning numbers, the actual allocated and actual use percentages, and the same set of thresholds, 80, 90, and 100 across the same time window, 30, 60, and 90 days, right? So if you select a particular bar, it'll actually show the storage pool name along with the storage system name and the actual number of days to a particular threshold level. So we started providing useful information as to how to identify orphan storage and the effect of that, which is the utilization levels going up. We wanted to provide tools to the administrators to sort of contain that, and made sure that they have a tool to kind of monitor the allocation levels, right? So we provided that. So we already used the numbers in multiple ways. For example, the unused volume analytics is driven by the performance numbers that we collect, and the days to threshold analytics is driven by the capacity numbers that we collect from these different storage arrays, right? And the other interesting problem that we took, and where we wanted to apply analytics, was from the topology perspective. Storage topology can be very complex. You have a lot of things happening in the storage topology, and we particularly took virtual servers as an example, because again, we had some experiences where our customers told, because of over allocation that's happening in the if you remember, Vmware allows us to thinly provision the the VMDKs or the disks for my virtual machines, and the storage vendors do provide thin provisioning at the storage array layer. So we have thin provisioning happening in two different layers now, right? So at the storage array layer and also at the server layer where my VMs are thinly provisioned, right? And we had some problems where people did not monitor how much physical storage that they actually have, and they kept on allocating, even though every server reported that it's consuming only so much amount of storage. Ultimately, the physical capacity that's available on the array ran out, and it ultimately ended in an outage situation, right? So we wanted to again sort of pick on that problem and really highlight this problem of thin on thin provisioning. And so this is what we provide for the virtual servers. You can see a list of data stores on the virtual server layer, and the over allocation percentage number that you have, it's calculated after two levels of over provisioning, right? So we take the physical capacity that's there in the storage pools, and then calculate how much we have over allocated in those two levels, and then present this number. Typically storage arrays and the vendors will tell you about the over provisioning that's happening only on the storage array layer. You may have some tools to track the kind of over provisioning at ESX server level or the VMware level, but then nobody connects those dots and then say that, okay, this is actually how much it's over allocated after two levels of thinly provisioning the storage, right? Let's pick an example here. For example, I have a shared data store on one of my ESX servers that's coming from a 3 per array, and if I select that, I would get a little bit more detail, and it shows how much I have over allocated, and it shows the configuration that I have. It says thin on thin. That means that both my VM and my storage array both are thinly provisioned. So by putting together the whole topology, we can differentiate between the different combinations of thin provisioning that's happening. You can have thin or thick on the server level, and you can have thin or thick on the array layer. So it clearly differentiates that, and you can see what's the configuration that you have, and you can decide how you want to manage this complexity. And because with just thin provisioning on the arrays, organizations typically had a policy on how much they want to over allocate, right? Now that the equation has changed because there's one more new variable, which is thin provisioning that's happening on the server layer. So we're just providing visibility into that, and by putting together the topology information, tell you what's the actual configuration is like. For example, certain vendors do recommend how to configure thin provisioning when you have an ESX server environment and you have an array which supports thin provisioning. If you take 3 par, there is a specific recommendation which says how it needs to be set up. For example, if it should be eager zeroed or lazy zeroed, and all that is specifically mentioned, so that now you have visibility into both the ends, and you can track how the configuration is done, right? And we also provide, what are the virtual servers that have the most amount of over-allocated data stores in the whole managed environment, so that you can take a look at that and decide, which of these virtual servers need probably urgent attention versus what are the ones that you want to slightly delay. And also, again, capacity optimization is one of the core themes that we have, and wherever possible, we provide useful information about how you can identify orphan storage and how you can sort of reclaim it, right? So one of the things that we have done newly is providing how capacity is used by the virtual machines, right? Snapshots, we know they are useful, very useful, and pretty much needed in all our environments, but when unmanaged, they can eat up a lot of storage space, and also it can be storage space that's on our tier 1 storage, right? We don't want probably our snapshots in high cost storage. So we provide a count of snapshots that each virtual machine has, and these are the top 10 VMs across your entire environment that has the most amount of snapshots. And also on the other end of the spectrum, we flip the coin and then say not just the number of snapshots, but what are the VMs that has consumed the most amount of space by snapshots, right? So you can see here there is a VM here which has consumed 1 terabyte in snapshots, but you can see that VM doesn't even come up in the top 10 list if we just count it by the snapshot counts, right? So it's very important to kind of look at both the numbers and then figure out where do we want to focus our attention first, and then get that storage reclaimed. And also powered off VMs, we can get a list of powered off VMs and how many such VMs are there and how much capacity are they consuming in the whole environment, right? So we can get a list of that as well. So we saw how we can use performance information to do some analytics, capacity information to do some analytics, how to use the topology information, and how do we put together the capacity along with it and do some analytics to ensure that we track how much capacity do we have, and we don't end up in an outage situation, right? So these are different ways in which we apply analytics. And the other big thing that we recently launched is what we call as path analytics, right? If you really look at the complexity of the storage topology, like I said, if you have hundreds of storage devices and tens of thousands of Luns in there, and thousands of servers, you could have hundreds of thousands of storage paths, and potentially millions of storage paths. And how do you ensure all of them are configured based on some best practices? How do you protect your environment against something that's misconfigured? How do you quickly get to understand these configuration problems, right? So path analytics is our solution to that. The system has a centralized service which kind of analyzes all the paths that are there in the managed environment and tells us some useful information about it, right? So there are 3 metrics that the system reports. The first one is called as a single point of failure port. Single point of failure is slightly different than a single path, right? For example, a server may say 2 paths to a LUN, but there may be a port in the whole storage path, and if that port goes down, we will lose the visibility to that LUN, right? So that's the problem that we wanted to highlight. Not just single path, but also potentially, what's the component, on a failure of that component, you lose your LUN, right? Let's take an example, and let's look at the first rows that I have, which is SCDL 092, and you can see here I have a total of 511 entries that are listed here. These are the LUNs that are vulnerable to this particular sort of configuration, right? You can see here in this configuration, the LUN is presented through 2 storage system ports, and it's visible to only 1 port on the host side, right? And this is the exact problem that we wanted to highlight, right? A LUN which may have 2 paths, and the server may see 2 paths, a server administrator or somebody who's just looking at, running a command on the OS and checking, how many paths do they have. If they see more than 1 path, they say, okay, it's not a single path, it's not a problem, right? But that's not the case. In this case, if my HBA here fails, or if the switch port that my HBA is connected to just goes offline for some reason, if the GBIC goes bad, I know that I'm going to lose visibility to all these 500 different LUNs that are critical for my server, right? So this is the exact problem that we wanted to highlight, and this information is available to you as a dashboard, and also this information is available at each server that's managed within SOM. I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a moment. Before that, I just wanted to pull this information. So this is a typical layout of any dashboard that we have. So you see the graphical widgets. So the graphical widgets will be top 10 by a certain metric, and you'll also get a table view which highlights. Which has a list of all the devices in your managed environment which has that particular vulnerability, right? For example, let me pick this host. It really has only one LUN that's vulnerable to it. Let's double click that. It opens up the details about that host. And you can see here it's something called as an inferred host, right? So this is a host which we have not, the administrator of SOM has not entered an IP address or username or password to detect this host. We've just inferred this host by creating some rules and and sort of discovering these or inferring these from the zones or the zone aliases or the host security group configurations or even the Cisco device aliases that you may have. So you are using existing configuration information, and if you have any patterns that you have, we can just feed off that pattern and infer the host. So we can infer three ports in this particular host, and I can see the connectivity of these three ports, and I can get how much capacity is presented from different storage devices, and also it checks for all the configuration best practices. So let's open up two views side by side so that you'll know what I'm trying to highlight here. So you can see here there are 10 LUNs presented to this particular server, and one of them is vulnerable to a single point of failure, right? So we can see there are two storage system ports, and there's one HBA port, right? And if you want really very detailed information right down to the path level, that's also available right out of the right from the product itself. And let me pop this open so that we can see it in more detail. So this is opening a new window which will show the same table that I have over here. While it loads, probably we can just pull this over here. So it shows that the 10 LUNs that we have, there are a total of 54 paths to it. It's still reading. Okay, we have a total of 54 paths, and for every path we have a path visibility column which tells us, this is an inferred host, so theoretically it calculates and checks all the configuration on the storage system side, on the fabric, the zoning, and all that, and tells us if a path is going to be visible or missing. And if it's missing, if I select a particular entry which is missing, it also tells us why it is missing, right? So here we can say that a particular path is missing because my HB and storage ports are in different fabrics. They have logged into different fabrics, but on the storage system side, somebody has created a host security group which says, present this LUN through this array port to a particular host port, right? So then we know that we need to look at that configuration, and if we need to change that to either the array port that's on the same fabric or on the host port that's on the same fabric, we need to update that configuration and say, okay, we need to fix that configuration, right? And going back to the single point of vulnerability, single point of failure vulnerability, right? Let me sort it by volume, and I can quickly bring up the analysis pane for the host, which tells me which is that volume that I was looking at. So it's SEDL086 underscore volume 1. So you can see here there are two paths. Again, like I said, the two paths doesn't mean that this LUN is secure and it doesn't have a vulnerability. We can see here it's presented through two ports in my storage system side, but on my initiator side, let me pull this up a bit. You can see here both of them are presented to the same HBA port. So I need to update my configuration on the array and then present it to the other ports that I have in my host to really protect this from outages. To bring in redundancy to that particular device. And the second one is about zoning misconfigurations. Even though on the storage array side we have done the configuration correctly, we have chosen the right array ports and the host ports. On the fabric side, when somebody was changing the configuration, if they made a mistake and maybe removed a character in the WWN or something like that, we know that misconfiguration in zoning could potentially mask out it makes that particular storage path invisible to the server. Again, the intent here is not to tell only the missing LUNs, but also tell the missing paths, because right now it's just a vulnerability because a path is missing. And we don't want that vulnerability to be an actual outage, right? So, like I said, if a LUN has 8 paths and if just 2 of them are not visible to zoning misconfiguration, the system would still identify and flag that because we want to detect that vulnerability early and then sort of protect your device against an actual outage, right? So it checks the configuration and gives us that information. Again, the information is available for all the hosts, be it inferred hosts or if you have really entered the username and password and discovered the host. So the same sort of information is available for all the hosts. And the third metric that we track in terms of path analytics is really about shared LUNs. We know shared LUNs are useful when it comes to clusters and things like that, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the LUNs are not shared between servers that are not in a cluster. For example, I picked an example server here, it's EDL057, and I can see here it's shared to a few other servers, and these are part of a cluster, and I can also see there is one other host to which the same LUN is presented, but I can see here it's not part of the same cluster. So this is not supposed to happen. So we need to look at that configuration on the storage array side and then go and remove this host so that it doesn't accidentally write some blocks where it's not supposed to be, right? So the system tracks from the storage path perspective 3 different metrics that can really protect our systems against and it checks the best practices and protects our systems against these vulnerabilities that we have, right? There's a lot of views where we can use the information to use the navigation that we have within the product to quickly analyze the connectivity information, the performance information and such. For example, I can pick a VM and launch a topology view for that, and I can quickly figure out what's the storage dependency for my VM, right? And from that again drill down one more level and then really get the detailed topology, and pretty much all the devices that you see here, we collect performance metrics. This is the HBA that I have on my VM side, and from the fabric also we collect performance, and on the array side, the ports and the LUNs, we do collect performance. So you can quickly from all these different views, you can quickly figure out, where your potential bottleneck is, and then troubleshoot performance problem much faster. For example, my fabric port, the switch port that's connected to my array side, you can see there's a lot of buffer-to-buffer credit problems. So, this port is saturated. I can then, double-click on the port and bring up what are the LUNs that are presented through that storage system port, and then I can see if I can balance out some of these LUNs through some of the free ports that I have in my storage device. Right? So again, using the different UI components that we have, you can quickly navigate your entire infrastructure and then come up with decision points as to what's really happening And when you have a hard situation, how can you quickly get to the information that you're looking for, right? So the product is built for interactivity in that sense. And also, Kara talked about operations widget reporter and the powerful reporting capabilities that we have. So let me give you a quick example of a report that I have created. Here, for example, I'll open the 3-power volume performance. Again, from the performance management perspective, how easy it is to customize the data that we collect within SOM, and then sort of create the views that you are looking for within the product, right? For example, I have 2 tabs in my report here. The first tab gives me a list of Luns, where I wanted to highlight the ones that are not performing that well. These are the Luns that have bad performance, and this is the ranking that I created by ranking first on the throughput. What are the Luns that have the least amount of throughput, and also taking the service time into account. What are the Luns that are having high service time serving these low throughput requests, right? So it does a ranking on both these metrics and then tells us, what are the Luns that are performing really bad within the environment. So we're not doing a top 10 on just one performance metric. We're doing a top 10 on 2 different performance metrics, and then we're saying, okay, a low throughput and a high service time or a high latency LUN. So I want to get a list of all those LUNs, and I want to look at the servers that are consuming these LUNs, right? So we can get that information here, and also on the other end, we look at when we want to track ELA. Not ELA, sorry, SLAs, and say if the performance of some of my LUNs, we know that we want the service times to be less than 1 millisecond or 2 milliseconds. So again, we can get a list of those high performant LUNs and ensure that we have these service times under control. So again, some very interesting analytics that you can do within the reporting solution as well by using the customization options and really creating sort of these rankings on your own, and then creating a report for performance monitoring. With that, let me stop here, and Kenna.
All right, thanks, PJ. And I'll go ahead and share mine again. All right, can you see my screen now, PJ?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, so thanks, PJ, for the demo. We'll just do a quick cleanup here at the end. Let me see if I can get my... I just want to present to you just this last slide, just to wrap it up. We want to thank you for your attention, and if you have any interest in looking into Storage Operations Manager, we do have a 60-day free trial version from our website. It's the full version, and the license will be available for 60 days for you from the time of the install. We also have our full documentation set available on the software support website. And then you may want to look out at some of our blogs. We have blogs not only written by R&D and product marketing, product management, but also one of our customers, Philip Sellers at HTC, has his own blog site on techazine.com, and he's written at least 3 blogs about his experience so far with HPE Storage Operations Manager. So with that, thanks everyone for your attention today. I'll turn it back over to Mark, and so he can do the wrap up for us.
Sure. We did have actually another polling question. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. We're willing to stay on another 10 minutes and try to answer some of these questions. For those that have to drop, you can review the questions and the responses, as well as the recording of this presentation a little bit later. Anne-Marie, do you want to pop up that polling question? Okay, so a real quick one for you folks. Are you deploying or planning to deploy software-defined storage, otherwise known as SDS? And there's about 5 different responses here. Response number 1, we have deployed SDS. Response number 2, we plan on deploying this year. Response number 3, we plan on deploying next year. Response number 4, no current plans to deploy. Or response number 5, I don't know. If those of you that are still on the call and the presentation would be kind enough to respond to these polling questions, we'll review the results. While that's going on, I did want to let people again that after the presentation, within the next couple days, the recording will be made available. And we also encourage you to take a brief survey at the end of the presentation and opt in to learn more from HP Enterprise regarding storage operations management or other things you might be interested in finding out more about. So, okay, why don't we see the results, Anne-Marie? Okay, so leading the pack at 50%, no current plans to deploy, and then a 3-way tie at 17% for we plan on deploying this year, we plan on deploying next year, or I don't know. And then the only outstanding response that didn't get any votes was we have deployed SDS.
Thanks, Mark. That's kind of interesting because it kind of dovetails in with the polling results that Dimensional Research also saw a lot of response on the on customers saying that they had not yet deployed any software-defined storage in their environments and didn't expect to within the coming year or two. So that's kind of just echoes the same results that we did see in that study as well. And that's the study that we've provided in a handout. So there are more results in there for the participants if they would like to see that full study.
Great, great. There were some questions that came in. I'll go through a few of these. I don't know that we'll have time to get through all of them. What we don't cover, you'll be able to read through after the fact. The first one here is, can Storage Operations Manager discover the other vendor's storage besides HPE storage?
Yes, and that's one of the main points of Storage Operations Manager. We are a heterogeneous or multi-vendor storage management solution. So not just HP, but EMC, IBM, HDS, and NetApp, as well as, of course, Brocade and Cisco switches. So we're able to manage all of those, a lot of those environments. We in the documentation list that I provided the link to is a copy of our device support matrix, which kind of details all of the multi-vendor environments we support.
Great, great. Another question here. Do I have to purchase Operations Bridge Reporter with Vertica separately, or does it come with SOM?
So we do, no, you do not have to purchase them separately. We do provide the license to Operations Bridge Reporter, which includes the data warehouse, the Vertica data warehouse. So that comes with the SOM package.
All right, great, great. A few more here. What is the typical number of storage arrays that is required to justify the cost investment in SOM. Can you, oh, I'm sorry, that's actually the end of the question.
So, yeah, that's the end of the question. Okay.
Typical, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is a kind of an it depends answer. It depends not only on the storage arrays, but if you would also want to manage, host at the same time, you're looking at a large, maybe virtual host environment. So it would be worth talking to somebody in our pre-sales group to take a deeper look at the environment, to understand what all exists in the environment, and then kind of get a quote from them. They would be able to give you a basic quote on there.
All right, great. Another one here is, can SOM generate events based on the analytics?
So that's a really good question. We are looking for something like that in the future. We just in our newly released version, which we released at the end of January, we put our events framework into place. And what that events framework currently does is it takes SNMP traps from storage devices. However, one of the future things that we would like to do in the product is to offer that sort of policy manager that we could take events from the analytics and present those as events. So that while it doesn't exist now, it is something on top of our minds, and that other customers have requested.
Awesome. Does SOM provide feature parity or feature advantages compared to VMware VR OPS?
So I'll maybe let VJ might have to answer a little bit more technical depth from, but I think what you would look at from a VM standpoint is more a VMware standpoint is more of a server side look at the environment, whereas we're focusing on both the server and storage side with Storage Operations Manager. I don't know, VJ, do you want to, I don't know if you have anything more to add there?
Yeah, you are right on that point, Kara. So VCOPS is again, it's primarily VMware focused, and we do go across both the virtualized environment as well as the physical environment when it comes to servers, and we do cover a lot more when it comes to the fabric and the storage management than what VCOPS offers. So.
Thanks, VJ.
Okay, a couple more. For performance metrics, HPE SOM can help you drill down to the spindle of a hard drive. Does HPE SOM also measure the performance of flash drives, since there are some flash drives out there that are faster than those flash drives that came out 3 years ago?
VJ, I'll let you answer that, but because I think there are various different flash arrays that are available right now. We do support HP 3PAR flash. I can't think of any other off the top of my head right now. It would be in our device support matrix, but VJ, maybe you want to.
Yeah, sure, Kara. Yeah, you're right. Again, we can get the performance metrics of these flash drives that are there on the 3PARs. Yeah.
Okay. Now there's one more here. Are there any concerns about customers using the free trial without any assistance?
The free trial, so we would have the product is a customer installable product. We do have, again, the documentation out there. We would encourage the customer to read the documentation and the installation notes. The installation is pretty quick and easy for Storage Operations Manager. so it should be pretty quick and easy. I don't know, VJ, if there are any areas where you've noticed customers having problems with the SOM installation specifically.
Yeah. So one recommendation is that please do read the support matrix that is part of the installation media, so that you are preparing the right set of servers. Be it Windows or Linux, you're setting up the prerequisite RPMs and the required configuration, right? So once that is done, the installation is pretty standard affair. Just launch the installer, and you can just press next, and get it installed and get the product up and running in a matter of minutes.
All right, great. Well, folks, I want to thank you, Kara and VJ, and all the folks from HP Enterprise that are helping with this presentation and the delivery of it. Very, very informative. I know for me personally, I tend to be more on the ADM side and the testing suite of tools, ALM, UFT, and so forth. So hearing some more about some of the other solutions that I'm less familiar with is always a cool thing to be able to listen in on and learn about. So thank you both again. Thanks to all the Vivid staff that are helping us put this together. And don't forget, folks, if you just take a few short minutes at the end to complete the survey, it'll help improve future webinar deliveries, and opt in for more information from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. On behalf of Kara and VJ and the rest of the folks from HPE and the rest of the Vivid staff, my name is Mark Herbert. Thank you again for attending, and we'll see you down the line at a future webinar, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.